Wisteria, energy, twister. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Encyclopedia of Faeries. We're now on Elfshot, and I have talked about Elfshot before when I did the Fairies Through Time. We got into a little bit, but Elfshot, elf arrow, yeah, they are, but elf arrows. They appear in both Irish and Scottish folklore, fairy lore. They're a type of small weapon used against people and livestock by the fairies, but also by witches too. One of the most common weapons of the fairies, Elfshot have various negative effects on those struck by them. The arrows do tangibly exist and can be found as small Neolithic flint arrowheads. When someone found a flint arrowhead or anything similar looking, they would usually believe they had found a fairy arrow. If the arrow was dull, then it was believed it had been used already to bring harm to someone or some animal, cattle, whatever, wild animal. When they are used by fairies, they are invisible, so the wounds they cause require a special practitioner to be brought in to identify the site of the impact. The Sairhead Seath in Gaelic is fairy arrows, thought to be one of the very lucky ones that you can find on the ground. Although some believed a found elf arrow should be thrown in water or buried to avoid drawing dangerous otherworldly attention, others believed such an arrow was a powerful talisman, which had to be kept covered from sunlight and not allowed to touch the ground again to regain its power back. While being struck by one that was cast by a fairy or witch could be deadly, the beliefs surrounding the found physical arrows are very different, and they were often kept as talismans. Scottish folk belief said that a person could not find an elf arrow by searching for one, but only by accident, and often with the arrow appearing in an unexpected manner. There are a variety of ways these arrows might show up, including being found in a person's clothing, possessions, or shoe, without the person having knowingly put it there. Lady Wilde, however, mentions an Irish belief that fairy stones were often found near fairy hills, lying on the ground, and adds no particular prohibition against unintentionally looking for them. Simply having such an arrow was lucky, but they also had magical properties and could be used, both herbal charms and in cultures for sick cattle. Multiple examples can be found in Scotland of Elfshot that have been set in silver and were worn as protective pendants. When used as weapons by the other crowd, Elfshot was thought to be one possible cause of elf stroke or fairy stroke. Fairy stroke can take form in a sudden seizure, paralysis, cramping, pain, bruising, the wasting sickness, and even death. The most distinctive type of Elfshot injury was a sudden internal shooting pain without any clear explanation. Symptoms may explain why Elfshot was sometimes seen to cause or be related to fairy stroke, although they were also seen so distinct from each other. The fairies might use Elfshot for a variety of purpose, including punishing humans for slight offences, tormenting them, would they like to do that, over greater violations, stealing humans' livestock into fairy. If the purpose was a minor punishment, the effect might be minor and only last for a short time, while if they were truly angry, it might involve great pain and suffering indefinitely or even result in the person's death. There are also accounts of fairies using Elfshot to paralyse a person in order to switch the person with a changeling, take that person for their own. If they wanted to take cattle, a similar procedure was used, where the animal was shot and would seemingly waste away and die, so the fairies could take it. Fairies were also known to give Elfshot to witches, who would then use it, sometimes in the direction of good people. Isabel Gowdy, in her trial confession, said that she had seen Elfshot arrows being made when she was visiting among the fairies and confessed witches in Scotland, admitted using Elfshot against other humans. According to Gowdy, she had gone with the fairies and at least one occasion seen the devil, making the arrows and handing them to elf boys, who sharpened and prepared them. She claimed that they, along with a short chant, were then given to mortal witches to be used with details of how to aim and shoot the arrows effectively. Because of the widespread belief in Elfshot, many different cures and treatments for it existed. The 9th and 10th century Anglo-Saxon leech books contain a selection of drinks, salves, and charms to treat humans afflicted with the symptoms of Elfshot. Usually a person will be diagnosed with an elf-related ailment, often involving such sudden internal pain or illness that was traditionally attributed to elves. Then a cure would be prepared and given in conjunction with a chanted or spoken charm or prayer. The Leech Book also offers possible cures for horses suffering from Elfshot, which involve a combination of actions, including shedding the animal's blood and spoken charms. One 20th century Irish method of diagnosing if a cow has been Elfshot was to measure the cow from nose to tail tip 3 times using the person's arm. If the measure was the same each time, it was normal illness, but if it measured different any time, it was a sign of fairy illness. For cattle, the animal can be rubbed with an elf arrow, which was found previously, because it has a curative powers over its own health issues. Rubbed with salt water, then given as a drink, or given water that has salt and silver in it. In Ireland, one folk cure was to spill a bit of the cow's blood in a ceremony dedicating the animal to Saint Martin. Often a specialist like fairy doctor or beneficer would be called. They would have to verify that a person or animal had been elfin shot before the cure to be done, and if it was needed. Sometimes the effect of shot was deemed permanent, could not be cured at all, and the cure applied would not be strong enough and it wouldn't be effective. In some cases, tragically, especially in relation to suspected changeling, the cure itself would prove fatal. Elfshot has gone by names across Ireland, Scotland and England: elf arrows, fairy darts, fairy stones, the seich si. But the beliefs are very cohesive across all areas where they are found, bringing a variety of painful ailments and allowing the good people to potentially take a person or animal they desire. Elfin shot is one of the most dangerous weapons. The effect can be transitory or permanent and may be mitigated with magical charms and herbal cures. Ironically, the same exact shot that causes the injuries can be used to cure it when wielded by a well-intentioned human hand. That means someone who knows what they're doing, and obviously remember, trial confessions, with few exceptions, were obtained under extreme duress. So it's worth considering their reflection of contemporary beliefs should be taken without scepticism or their objective truth, because they were forced into confessions, therefore they would probably say anything just to get some peace or of some solace, back in the day. We've already been through the witch trials by now, so you should probably understand that. The next is the Elion. They are actually Welsh fairy beings. Elil are the single ones. They are most closely to be equated to the English and Scottish concept of elves, although the Elil tend to be viewed as smaller and more generally benevolent. They're associated with forests and similar areas throughout the area and encroach on human habitations as well, so they don't mind coming into contact with humans or not. In stories, they're often described as small figures, but good-natured and cheerful, and though they do like the forest area and they are known as the forest-type elves, they will, obviously, join in with people too, and you might not necessarily know them because they do vary in size, in stature, just like humans do, and they can use glamour to hide their ears. And that is the only way that you would really tell one. If it looks like a human stood in front of you, you're going to believe it's a human stood in front of you. Though some people have that sense, and people say there's a certain aura that they emanate. And this aura is definitely one that feels otherworldly, doesn't feel quite human as such, if you understand what I mean. So there is ways of telling them apart if you have that sense to do so. So yeah, that is basically a forest elf, but it's just in Welsh. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Encyclopedia of Fairies, and many blessings.
Wisteria, energy, twister.